I'm irritated. I'm so irritated. I'm so fucking angry. Destruction Derby is a whole ass vibe. I need some glow sticks. Um, what happened? What happened is my internet cut out for a solid minute and a half, just long enough to completely fuck over the stream. If it happens again, I'm not going to be back because it's 1 o'clock in the goddamn morning and I haven't talked about any of the stuff that I prepped for today. Yeah, the Shimp are attacking again. Salmon Moose, are you saying that it might be like it might not be my fault and it might be the fault of like the internet, the ISP? Like they're resetting their DNS server because it got all fucked up? Be nice to know it's not my fault. Fuck it. Eschew politics, embrace the music. Okay, one more NES song. Okay, are you guys ready? Here we go. That drop is so good. Isn't this game basically Rayman at home? Yes. Yes, it is. Yes, you are correct. All right. Hello, Jack. Were you late to stream today, or do I just not know your schedule yet? I was both late to stream and when I did start stream, I ran into technical issues for a full 3 hours, so it's been a day. It has been a day. Let's see here. All right. Beep boop. Oh god, nope. We're not doing that right now. Let's see. All right. Let's at least get one segment done today. There's a schedule. I'm supposed to start at 8 p.m. Central Time. We're full, like, 5 hours past that. We don't have to redo trombone? No. No, we don't. Lord Fritus says to Jazz Dog, you can always go on itch.io and enlist in a game jam, make game friends, and start a portfolio that way. That is actually really good advice. All the indies be working on itch.io. Also consider dropping those subs and donos to support stream, because it's been a real shit show today. All right. Let's go. I'm glad we've culled the audience of most of the viewers. That's, that's always the best way to start a stream. All right. Hitting that button. So, folks, you may have heard over the years about a concept called school vouchers. And the general premise of it is pitched to parents as, well, you're pretty much locked down at your public school, and your only other option is a private school. But you need money to go send your kid to a private school. So what if we gave you government money to send your kid to a private school? And a lot of parents go, these public schools, they're pretty bad. I would like to send my child to a private school. And so it has taken on more and more energy, particularly from the conservative end of things, largely under the banner of school choice, right? And there are a number of huge problems with this, primarily because public schools get funding based on the number of students that they have, right? So if fewer students go to the school gets less money from the government. And that really becomes a problem for the school, because the school has, a certain has to maintain the school grounds. And if the school is built for 4,000 students and suddenly they only have 2,000 students, well, that's going to make keeping the services and maintaining the building and the grounds more difficult. It's going to cut into money that would otherwise go towards after-school programs or clubs or, additional nurses or psychologists or counselors or, a lot of the services a school needs to function, And Republicans, time after time, say, oh, no, it's okay. The school will still get funding, and that's true. They do still get funding. But that funding is based per child, so the funding goes down. You see the problem here, right? And so, where does the money that these private school vouchers go to? Well, it goes to, there are only a handful of options here. Either religious schools, which are typically supposed to be barred from receiving government funding, right? But this is a sideways way to funnel money into religious institutions. And you also have charter schools, schools that are run for profit. Or there are also non-profit versions of charter schools, but they are basically run as for-profit schools anyway. So you have those two things going on, right? So either there is a private corporation taking money from the government and then cutting services to students, or in many cases, students will use their money to attend one of these private schools, one of these charter schools, but because they're being run like a business, they don't want to look bad if there is a kid who is underperforming because they might have a learning disability, or they might just be like understanding concepts at a different speed for whatever reason. That can cause that child to be cut from the school in order to make the school not look bad, because they're a private institution. They do not have to take students that have additional needs, right? And the same is true, by the way, of religious schools. But one of the under-talked about aspects of this is that in the middle of these for-profit charter schools, or even non-profit charter schools, and religious institutions running schools, kind of in the middle of all of this, kind of one of the overlapping circles of this Venn diagram here, is kind of largely underarticulated in our current American society, and that is the entire conversation about school choice is really birthed out of the segregation, the movement to keep schools segregated. It is birthed out of white Southern families desiring to keep their kids in all-white schools. And in fact, there is actually a name for these schools, and they are called segregation academies. And ProPublica has actually been doing an incredibly good job breaking down these schools, right? They've been publishing like this extensive collection of articles over the past year about the struggles of different communities that are home to these segregation academies that basically create a two-tiered education system, right? The heavily funded private school that only the white kids go to, and the poor black school that is public, where black and brown kids go. And as somebody who's had my finger on the pulse of politics for a while now and is heavily invested into the education, I actually hadn't ever heard of these. And now that I've been doing some reading and research, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense why Republicans keep championing this. It is an extension of the Southern strategy. It is an extension of the entire basis for Republicans being attached at the hip to the issue of abortion. It is inexorably linked to the conservative mindset. And you might say, well, okay, but how much of your tax dollars is going to these segregation academies? And I gotta tell you guys, it's a lot. So ProPublica published this piece recently. Segregation academies in Mississippi are benefiting from public dollars as they did in the 1960s. ProPublica identified 20 schools in the state that likely opened as segregation academies and have received almost $10 million over the past 6 years from the state's tax credit donation program. Wait, they're called segregation academies? Yeah, that is the term by which they are referred. That is the term that is used for them. And I guys, the opening of this article, devastating. Also, you all should support ProPublica because it's a nonprofit that's actually not bought and owned by a billionaire, and they do phenomenal work. Okay, but just look at this. On May 14th, the final day for submitting new bills in the Mississippi legislature, a bold new package of them landed on the desks of Mississippi lawmakers. The plans called for the creation of a voucher program that paid for students to attend private schools. A few weeks later, in the heat of mid-June, the governor urged lawmakers to support the $40 million program, promising it, quote, will bear the sound fruit of progress for 100 years after this generation is gone, unquote. Public school support would continue, he assured, but vouchers would, quote, strengthen the total educational effort, unquote, by giving children, quote, the right to choose the educational environment they desire, unquote. It was 1964. This isn't this year. This has been going on for 60 years. Key backers of the move included a group of white segregationists that had formed after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled state-mandated public school segregation unconstitutional. Across the South, courts had already rejected or limited similar voucher plans in Alabama, Louisiana, Virginia, and Arkansas. But Mississippi lawmakers plowed forward anyway and adopted the program. For several years, the state funneled money to white families eager for their children to attend new private academies, opening as the first black children arrived in previously all-white public schools. Like, this is quite literally like they found out black kids were coming to their school and said, we need the government to give us money to allow us to be racist.
Oh sheet, I'm the wrong color, and by sheet, I of course mean the one the dono ghost YOS's.
Salmonmus, thank you for the tier 4 sub. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting stream. But pretty interesting stuff going on here, right? Now, 60 years later, ProPublica has found that many of these private schools, known as segregation academies, still operate across the South, and many are once again benefiting from public dollars. Earlier this week, ProPublica reported that in North Carolina alone, 39 of them have received tens of millions in voucher money. In Mississippi, we identified 20 schools that likely opened as segregation academies and have received almost $10 million over the past 6 years. At least 8 of the 20 schools opened with an early boost from vouchers in the 1960s. The origins of private schools receiving public funds were with the segregation academies, said Steve Suits, a historian and the author of Overturning Brown, the Segregationist Legacy of the Modern School Choice Movement. Most private schools receiving money from the voucher-style programs exploding across the country aren't segregation academies, but where the academies operate, especially in rural areas, they often foster racial separation in schools and, as a result, across entire communities. This is effectively educational redlining. I mean, we gotta call it like it is. This is educational redlining, guys.
Yay.
Jazzdog, thank you for the $5 dono. I appreciate it. I'll say 10 million isn't a lot, but relative to it, yeah, but it's, you can say it's not a lot, but it's going specifically to white supremacist schools, you know, like that's, I'm sorry, I don't want millions of my taxpayer money going to like a white supremacist institution. That's pretty messed up. Like, at least on paper, US government offices aren't supposed to be white supremacist. But, like, these schools explicitly were founded as bastions holding out against the encroachment of black children being taught alongside white children, because it would sully the education of the precious white kids. And, like, the other part of this is, even in areas where these private schools are not explicitly white supremacist, often they take on that tone anyway. They take on that role, largely because, frankly, what tends to happen is the government can give out these vouchers, but these private institutions are not required to only accept the vouchers, meaning that the vouchers help get you part of the way to private, the private school, but you need to fork over additional money to actually still send your kid to that school, right? So what ends up happening is that the government may give your kid a voucher, but then that private school, well, it ups their fees a little bit. So not every kid who gets those vouchers gets to go to the private school. And because in America we're still very much divided racially along economic lines, black people tend to be disproportionately poor, white people tend to be disproportionately more wealthy. What winds up happening on a societal scale is that, well, the white kids wind up going to the better private schools, and the black kids either get stuck in public school or they get sent to predatory, cheaper private schools. It is disgusting what happens here, and it gets. I mean, it's been brushed under the rug for the past 60 years, to the point where, I know a lot of you didn't know that there was a term for segregation academies. I didn't know that until I started looking into this story. Despite the passage of decades, most segregation academies across Mississippi remain vastly white, far more so than the counties where they operate, federal private school surveys show. Mississippi is the state with the highest percentage of black students. At 15 of the 20 academies benefiting from the tax credit program, student bodies were at least 85% white as of the last federal private school survey for the 2021 to 2022 school year. And among the 20, enrollments at 5 were more than 60 percentage points whiter than their communities. Another 11 were at least 30 percentage points whiter, meaning that these schools are vastly disproportionately white. Okay? These schools also flat out reject people of color and disabled students. They absolutely will. If they believe it will somehow make them look bad or besmirch their reputation, if a child from a family that one of these private institutions believes is like too black or uncouth or mouthy, they will not be accepted into the school, voucher or not. So yeah, it's pretty wild, and it is directly rooted in white supremacy. In 1964, the White Citizens Council was among those pushing for the voucher plan. The pro-segregation group was founded in the Mississippi Delta town of Indianola in the 1950s by Robert Tutt Patterson, who sought to, quote, save our schools if possible from integration, and, if that failed, to develop a system of private schools for our children. This was explicitly the plan of white supremacists in the 1960s, and Republicans to this day still push it everywhere across America, both because it is a way for funneling public money into private hands, and because it strengthens religious institutions by, basically giving them government money, even though the government isn't supposed to give religious institutions money. And, well, Yeah. I mean, this is all pretty cut and dry, right? Like it's pretty unabashedly racist. And Republicans love it. This is why they constantly talk about school choice. They constantly talk about it. It's why Betsy DeVos, a billionaire, was put in charge of education last time under Trump. It was to push this school voucher idea. It's why Republicans constantly tell the conservative parents that are part of the Republican Party and movement to go to school board meetings, because they want to undermine schools. They want to undermine schools so that there are only private and religious institutions available, and the public schools are they want the public schools to be shit. They want to segregate the schools, and they want to make sure the wealthy kids stay with the wealthy kids. They don't want, their precious little white angels to be slumming it with poors, or people who are non-white. Like it really does, when you boil it down. That's how ugly it is. If you're sitting here being like, oh well, it's not that they want that, it's just a side effect. Well, look, I can't judge the contents of someone's character based on, what they say. I have to judge it based on what they do. And when the effect of these programs over 60 years is to redline education, to effectively segregate students by both race and class, I gotta call a spade a spade. This is white supremacy. It is a white supremacist movement. For Patterson, it was personal. His family, including a young daughter who would start school that fall, lived on what he called a plantation with 35 black families. As he later told an interviewer, quote, "We took care of them, we practically lived with them, we loved them, we tended to them, but I didn't want to mingle my children with them." And that's pretty fucking gross. That man was exploiting the labor of 35 black families and talks about them as he would farm animals. That this is the mindset of a lot of Southern whites, and frankly, a lot of whites up in the North as well, because we racist as hell up here too. Okay, like a lot of people in the North of the Americas. They act a bit more high and mighty about it than people in the South, but they are just as racist. Wait, when was this? This was in the 1960s. This is the guy who started the school voucher program. This is the guy who made it popular in America for conservatives to embrace the idea of school choice. When was that last quote? Yeah, 1964. He's explaining why he's doing the things he's doing and what undergirds this movement he started. The state's voucher program provided $185 to each student to help pay private school tuition, about $1,876 in today's dollars. It aimed to give each child individual freedom in choosing public or private schooling, the bill's preamble said. Shortly after lawmakers adopted the plan, Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs.
It seems like they'd rather just not have education for non-whites altogether, but don't think they can get that yet.
Unironically, Sake Tanuki, that is kind of what they aim for here. Like the entire idea is to basically put in place, if I can be maybe a bit overly broad with their ambitions, all I can talk about is the general trends that I see when it comes to education. And what it seems like a lot of Republican lawmakers want to do is to defund public schools, abolish the Department of Education, funnel government money primarily into private institutions and religious institutions, and then whatever kids fall through the cracks because they're poor, too black, too disabled, they wind up going to the public school that is, chronically underfunded, that cannot effectively teach them or accommodate their needs, and wait until they fail out, and then arrest them. That's largely the direction and the goal, I think, of these Republican lawmakers, right? There's a reason why there's the term the school to prison pipeline. There's a reason why school resource officers, school police officers have become so prevalent, and it's not to stop mass shootings, as we've clearly seen with Uvalde. It is to criminalize the students. And so what I think the Republican moment is geared toward is basically creating I mean, frankly, I was going to say second-class citizens, but frankly, third-class citizens. Because there will be, like, the shittier private schools for second-class citizens. There will be the elite private schools for, first-class citizens. And then there will be, the public schools for whatever, they deem as the worthless of society. And they will be sent to prison to work for private industry for slave wages. It's slavery with extra steps. Exactly. That is exactly the premise here. Shortly after lawmakers adopted the plan, the Citizens Council of America used its monthly journal to follow up with advice about how to start a private school and a sample charter of incorporation. Private schools sprouted up, particularly in public school districts under court desegregation orders or that had submitted voluntary desegregation plans to the federal government, court records show. Over the voucher program's first 4 years, the number of new segregation academies that received public dollars snowballed from 2 to 49. Among them, 48 enrolled no black students. One did admit black children, but only black children. John Giggy, a historian at the University of Alabama, directs its Summersell Center for the Study of the South and has studied the birth of these private schools. These days, people often have no idea why these segregation academies opened, he said. It was one of the most aggressive moves that Southern governors took after the passage of the Brown v. Board of Education case. That movement accelerated as the civil rights movement accelerated. It ripped across the region. As white families rushed to open academies, vouchers provided critical seed money. In the 1965 to 66 school year, vouchers covered more than a third of the total operating costs for at least 17 new academies. Infuriating stuff. One of the early takers was Central Holmes Academy, now Central Holmes Christian School. Vouchers paid more than 78% of the fledgling academy's tuition bills for 210 students that year. The school's directors made their feelings about integration clear in a letter later cited in federal court in which they described other schools as intolerable and repugnant. Keep in mind, taxpayer money paid for 78% of this school's budget. And they had the gall to talk about how schools that admitted black children were intolerable and repugnant. In 1968, Mississippi lawmakers increased each voucher to $240. The following January, black families in Mississippi prevailed in a federal case, a class action lawsuit against the state challenging the voucher's constitutionality. A panel of federal judges found that the program supported the establishment of a system of private schools operated on a racially segregated basis as an alternative available to white students seeking to avoid desegregated public schools. The program violated the Constitution, the judges ruled. Parents could choose segregated private schools for their children, but the voucher program involved the state in that discrimination. In a way, it was too late. The academies were up and running. Clearly, the schools could not have survived as even semblances of educational institutions without these contributions, the U.S. Department of Justice found after examining the Academy's finances as part of the federal lawsuit. By then, state taxpayers had funded more than 5,000 vouchers. Yeah. The segregation academies continued for a time to receive other forms of public aid, including state-financed textbooks, deals on property, and donations of public school equipment. But vouchers were dead. Then, 5 decades after the court tossed its early voucher program, Mississippi's legislature found a way to reestablish private school funding. In 2019, the state launched its Children's Promise Act, which provides incentives to businesses to participate in a state-funded program for private schools. The program gives businesses a dollar-for-dollar tax credit up to 50% of their total tax liability for donations to certain educational charities, including private schools. The act aims to help children who are low income, living in foster care, or diagnosed with chronic illnesses or disabilities. But there is no public disclosure on how much the schools focus on any of these things. Their requests with the state to qualify for the donations and therefore claims they make about how many students they serve in these categories are not made public. But it is clear that the donations, refunded with tax dollars, are flowing into segregation academies. They have waited half a lifetime in order to get another bite at the apple, in order to try to disguise their racism a bit better this time. But I do believe that knowledge is, half the battle. And so I hope that by learning about this, that learning that this is still going on, that they're still trying to do this after 50 years, that helps you understand a little bit. This is why there are times on this channel where I talk about how, like, once you know what's happening, you can't go back to, like, your ignorance. Like, how can you? This is disgusting. And they're revitalizing it with our taxpayer dollars. We are doomed by the mere act of knowing about this to fight this type of privatization of our educational system tooth and nail until the day we die, because this is frankly beyond the pale and disgusting as hell. In its latest annual report, the Mid-South Association of Independent Schools, founded in 1968 by a group of segregation academies, said the Mississippi tax credits are now a, quote, crucial source of funding. The association's ethic guidelines state any member school shall not discriminate on the basis of race, sex, color, national, or ethnic origin in the administration of its admission practices. ProPublica found that segregation academies represent at least a fifth of all schools benefiting from the tax credits. One-fifth of all schools benefiting from this program are schools founded in order to keep black children out. Explicitly. Founded by associates of the Ku Klux Klan. By members of the White Citizens Council. This is the kind of thing we need to make sure people hear about, because it's been swept under the rug for so long. Especially if you're not from that region and don't personally know these schools. A lot of people a lot of the people who knew about these firsthand are dead now. You know? Central Holmes is one. The school has received $812,150 from the tax credit fueled donations since 2020. Those resources help it improve academic programs, update technology, and facilitate professional development, said the school's headmaster, Chris Terry. As of the last federal private school survey, Central Holmes reported a student body that is 82% white, a shift from 95% white a decade ago, but far from representative of the community around it. Holmes County is barely more than 15% white. This is what white supremacy looks like. This is how racism and white supremacy continue to manifest in the American experiment, sorry. This is when we talk about how America is still racist, this is what we're talking about. A school in an area that is 85% non-white has 82% white students. You don't get that way without white supremacy. What are your thoughts on creating a section on the Discord for sources, like sources that I bring up during stream? There should be a section for it. Maybe it just needs to be renamed. But here you go. I think in the Discord that we have a channel called Articles Posted. Yes, it's called Articles Posted. Thank you. But maybe we need to rename it so it's easier to find and understand what it means. I'm not going to get derailed by this right now. Terry, who has been headmaster since 2022, noted that during that time, the school has had Asian, Hispanic, and Black students enjoying success. Among them were a Black valedictorian and homecoming queen. To me, this shows our school's desire to move past the past and forge a new future for our students and families, Terry said in an email. He added that he couldn't comment on the school's origin because he wasn't alive at the time. Oh, what a... Oh, I couldn't possibly talk... I couldn't possibly talk about what happened in the past. We're only a school, after all. I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't alive at the time, you see, and we haven't invented time machines. Yes, I know that there are these things called books that record things that happened in the past, but I haven't opened one in 30 years. Yes, indeed. Incredible stuff. Those who were alive when it opened in 1965 voiced differing visions of the future. In 1970, a Black legislator who represented Central Holmes District predicted that white students would return to public schools in 2 or 3 years. But Central Holmes board chair, a former legislator, disagreed. He predicted the school would go on indefinitely. And so far, that board chair has been correct. There is an ongoing problem in America with this type of segregation, and it is specifically designed, by the way. You know, it's designed to cater towards hatred, but perhaps even more than that, it is designed to foster, racial animus. It is designed, like, this type of system is designed to keep people fighting each other rather than fighting the people who oppress them and set up these systems. The wealthy, the elites, the capitalist class. It's been like this for a very long time. And this is honestly, it's not surprising, but it is deeply disappointing that we're still here in this particular debate about whether or not we should allow private schools to receive government funding and remain segregated like this. It's horrible.
This gets right.
And I think we need when I talk about our need to get involved in our local political scene, to get involved with our local Democratic Party, to get involved with our local DSA, and to actually network and organize with one another to infiltrate local and state level politics, it's specifically so we can end things like this. We are not passive observers to the horrors that are around us. We have agency in this system. We need to exercise it. We have a duty to, the children who are growing up now and who will grow up in the future. We have that duty. We have to do the hard thing. We are in a time of increased responsibility, and we have to go and do our part to get rid of this, because for too long, a lot of us sat on the sidelines and didn't do anything. We thought it was good enough, and I know that this is certainly true of me. I thought it was good enough to just know that this was wrong and that there are better options available. That we the solution to this is clearly we just fund public schools. We end school voucher programs while pointing out how it perpetuates this type of systemic racism. We slay the dragon of chaos even. Oh my goodness. But it's not enough to know what the right course of action is. You actually have to do the right course of action. You actually have to move the ball forward and put those policies into place. Because no one is coming to save us. The Democratic Party on its own is not coming to save us unless we make it. The Democratic Party alone is not going to rise up and end this practice of funding these segregation academies. They aren't going to be capable of embracing the language that is necessary to rally the general public towards the end of ending these oppressive systems. That's right, Hillary Clinton is a warmonger, and you know what? We should get her out of politics. We should not be allowing her to wield as much influence as she does over the Democratic Party. We should kick her the fuck out. They just voted against putting a progressive in charge of the House Oversight Committee. And instead, Nancy Pelosi, on her way out the door, giving 2 middle fingers to everyone, rallied the troops and got Jerry Connolly elected head of the Oversight Committee, one of the most powerful governing bodies in the House. And he's 78 years old and dying of throat cancer. These people are dying off And we need to make sure we're the ones who are going to come into power once they're gone. Because if we aren't, some corporate fuck in a suit is going to get that job, whose only interest is maximizing profits for the military-industrial complex or some shit. So we have to get in the door now on the local level, on the state level, not just on the local level and the state level in order to do that long-term goal, but also to do the short-term goals of improving our own communities, improving our lives, improving the lives of our children, improving the lives of everyone in our area, in our state. So we have work to do. It's not enough to just be right anymore. We have to roll up our sleeves and get to work. Join your local DSA, organize with them to infiltrate the Democratic Party, and then we fucking take it over. That's kind of what we have to do. Not because it's the easy thing to do, not because it is, the fun thing to do, though it can be fun. But because we have to. For ourselves, for our children, for our neighbors, for our colleagues, for the people we love and care about. So let's get to work. The Democrats are a waste. Yeah, they are right now. But you know what? They could simply cease to be a waste. We could actually use the apparatus that they have to our advantage if we took it over. And that is why I think we should do that. Because while we protest in the streets, we should also be protesting inside the decision-making apparatus of the Democratic Party, because they won't necessarily listen if the pressure is just outside. They need to be listening to the pressure inside and outside. How do we handle the tankies, the anarchitty LARPers, the people who want to put me on a blue sky block list because I'm a war criminal for having served? Our own house is not in order. I think we need to recognize that they are fringe, that they are relatively powerless, and that the reason they lash out at us is because we are more accessible than any of the people they actually hate. Those people do not show up to actually do anything constructive. If you go to your local Democratic meeting, none of those people actually do a single goddamn thing. If you go to your local DSA meeting, those people do not do shit. So, ignore them as you would a child throwing a tantrum. What are your thoughts on the DSA? Sometimes it can get a little silly in there, but it is largely a disconnected series of groups that independently work towards local aims. And so, depending on your local DSA, they can be really wonderful. And if they suck, guess what? You can make your own. You can make your own working group with blackjack and hookers. I think DSA is a great vehicle to help unionize workplaces, to help infiltrate the Democratic Party, to help influence caucuses, to help actually go out there and do shit. But it does take effort sometimes. Netanyahu is a war criminal?
Please don't ask me to go to my local NYCDNC meetings. It's toxic levels of neoliberalism denial. I'd be so happy to show up anywhere in the Midwest.
Honestly, though, I am going to ask you to show up to your local NYCDNC meetings. I know it will be infuriating, but this is why I also advocate for you to join DSA. Because if you join DSA, you can go to those meetings and then start getting more and more of those people to go to your local NYC DNC meetings. And suddenly, if you get a critical mass of DSA folks going to those DNC meetings, they're not going to be nearly as insufferable. And suddenly there's a lot more friendly faces in the room. You know, that's kind of why I'm advocating for this dual group approach. Yeah. You know what people in DSA fucking love? They love bullying feckless milquetoast Dems. It's like the number one thing people in DSA love to do. So harness that power for the greater good. Let's Tea Party the DNC. Unironically, Vaughn. Unironically. What is DSA? The Democratic Socialists of America, and it's the single most effective leftist organizing group as in America today, frankly. Currently joining DSA of the Twin Cities. Yeah, my partner and I are in the process too. I'm going to walk the walk with you guys as best I can. I am, of course, very busy, so I might be able to do a bit less, but I'm going to do what I can. Do they have alcohol? They certainly can go out and buy drinks. If the socialists I've seen are anything to go by, they can definitely take a few shots. Whew. All right. Now, folks, we've only been going for like an hour. But we have been going, believe it or not, we have been going for like 4 hours. I've been working on stream for 4 hours now. If you've been enjoying the show, hit the follow button on Twitch, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, like the goddamn YouTube stream, and consider dropping those subs and donos so that I can live. Title got me in. What are we screaming about? Honestly, it was I have a lot of topics. We just finished talking about segregation academies. And we've still got a lot of ground to cover when it comes to American racism. So we're gonna be talking a bit more about that as well. We are gonna do this Megyn Kelly segment, and I know it's going to be infuriating, but we gotta talk about it. DSA, the DNS, the DNC, a lot of D tonight. Look, I got a D down the stream, all right? I like gingers. I like gingers too. Ginger ale, ginger beer. Love ginger. Ohio's Don't Say Gay bill is going to pass. Yeah, Ohio's a real shit show right now. I'm sorry, Lady Raincloud. I'm technically a sock them, but hey. Well, yeah, I mean, like, DSA is not just for socialists. A lot of people who are not socialists join the DSA. All right. Let's go. You know what? Maybe I'll ease us into Megyn Kelly. I'll ease us into Megyn Kelly. You know, here we go. You guys ready? So, folks, you know who we have not heard from in a while? One Benjamin Shapiro. And I've had this clip teed up for a while because I thought it'd be funny to go over at some point, and I totally forgot about it. But now we're coming full circle on it, all right? We're coming full circle, and I just think that this is funny as hell, all right? So this is a clip from 3 weeks ago, put up by PragerU. and it's called one of PragerU's short clips. It is 4.5 minutes long, and it is titled Intersectionality, Disney Writer versus Ben Shapiro. And it is exceedingly funny to title it that when you understand that Ben Shapiro is a failed Hollywood screenwriter and he's really bad at writing, which we know because he released a novel and it's terrible. So, let's see what he has to say. What does the failed screenwriter have to say about Disney writers? Let's find out.
Say that, like, I think white women need to kind of step up their game, to be quite honest. Like, sorry, but I'm calling you out. Like,
my game. Yeah, all right.
You really do, because, like, you know, there's, like, I couldn't agree more with everything that these brilliant women are saying, but, like, I'm also seeing the silent killer, which is a lot of white women at the top who are kind of reinforcing a lot of old ideas. They're
like, what? I'm sorry. We got like a full 30 seconds of this that was basically just like white women be bitches sometimes. And you know, white women be perpetuating racism and stereotypes, which absolutely true. Absolutely 100% true. But like, what are you now the facts? What facts, Ben? No one hates women more than conservatives do. Like, what facts? You also hate women. I'm so curious.
If you're now thinking, what the hell are you talking about? You haven't spent much time on a modern college campus. Intersectionality is a form of identity politics in which the value of your opinion depends on how many victim groups you belong to. At the bottom of the totem pole...
This is not what intersectionality is or what it means. Like, there's a phrase for what Ben just described here, and it is oppression Olympics. And people have been making fun of that concept for a long time, but that's not what intersectionality means. It just is the recognition that, like, one individual can be oppressed in multiple different ways. That's it. That's all it means. Like, someone who is black and in a wheelchair can be discriminated against for being black, and can also be discriminated against for being in a wheelchair. That these are not mutually exclusive concepts. That's the entirety of what intersectionality is about, is being able to recognize that.
Is the person everybody loves to hate, the straight white male. And who's at the top? Well, it's very hard to say, because new groups claim victim status all the time. No one can keep track. So, how does this intersectionality...
Well, Ben, I'm just gonna... Can we back it up here?
The straight white male.
So, the reason here... Like, Ben is complaining here that straight white men in this concept are at the bottom of some kind of hierarchy. They're not. They are just the least oppressed group on the basis of being straight, white, and male. Because, and now I don't know if you guys need to know this or are unaware of this, but the majority of the systems in our country were set up by straight, white men. It's why when our country was founded, for example, you know, Ben Shapiro will talk all day about the greatness of the founding fathers. Notice how they never talk about the greatness of the founding mothers. That's interesting. Probably because the system that the founding fathers set up only allowed straight white men to vote if they owned land. You know, like, that's the reason in an intersectional understanding of the world or at least of the world in America, straight white men tend to be understood as less oppressed is because straight white men set up the majority of the systems we exist under. Does that mean straight white men cannot be oppressed, cannot be discriminated against? No. That's not what that isn't anywhere a tenet of intersectionality. You can find areas of the country where, one could conceivably be discriminated against on the basis of being straight, or on the basis of being white, or on the basis of being male. You can conceive of situations in which that might happen. But on a systemic level, do the systems punish someone for being straight or white or male? Not particularly. Now, can you conceive of a place where systems may discriminate against someone for being straight and white and male? Yes. There are other places on the planet where you could potentially go to where a straight white male would be discriminated against. That is possible. That there would be systemic discrimination against straight white men. But in America, in the context in which Ben Shapiro exists, straight white men are the ones who set up these systems. And also, in America, the oppression of straight white men is on the basis of other things, like class or religion, for example. Straight white men who are Jewish, for example, may be discriminated against, even in an American context. This is what intersectionality is about. It's recognizing that there are multiple axes of discrimination on a systemic level. That's it. Full stop. Hopefully that made sense to folks as I explained it. Because the way Ben is explaining it, it sounds like, everyone just wants to hate the straight white guy. That's not what intersectionality is about. That's not what an intersectional understanding of the world is about. And if you believe that is that's what it's all about, you've been lied to by conservatives. I studied intersectionality. I studied a lot of these concepts because I have an English degree. A degree largely, by the way, looked down upon as useless by a lot of the world. Surprisingly useful when it comes to actually understanding nuanced, different ways of looking at the world. Actually involved understanding intersectionality. Crazy. So if you believe what Ben is selling you here, you're just swallowing a lie.
And who's at the top? Well, it's very hard to say, because new groups claim victim status all the time. No one can keep track. So, how does this intersectionality thing play out? Something like this. Let's say you're a gay white woman.
As a queer woman,
your opinion matters, but less than that of a gay black woman.
I love that Ben Shapiro, failed screenwriter, is now attempting to write a fiction right before our eyes. It's great. I'm so glad that he's branching out into new fields.
Why? Because while all women are oppressed by the patriarchy, and all gays are oppressed by the heterosexual majority, blacks have a victim status that whites obviously don't.
Like, the guy at the top's louder. It's harder to say, I think this should be a black writer.
Of course, a gay black woman's victim status is less than that of a black trans woman, who ranks below a black Muslim trans woman, and so on. The more memberships you can claim in oppressed groups, the more aggrieved you are, and the higher you rank. Get it?
Keep in mind here, right? Ben is a black Muslim trans woman, right? But understand, to kind of reiterate what I was talking about earlier, if you were in the Middle East, in a state that is predominantly Muslim, being non-Muslim would actually make you a more oppressed category. This is the recognition that you can be oppressed along multiple axes in different ways, in different places, depending on your circumstances.
Good, because it's about to get even more complicated. Intersectionality takes your victim status and uses it as the basis for creating alliances with other victim groups.
No. It's just understanding where the axes of oppression are coming from. You know, that's it. And if you can then build solidarity with one another, you have a better chance of resisting that oppression. You know, when someone is being discriminated against, for example, on the basis of being trans, and another person is being discriminated against on the basis of being gay, for example, one might, I don't know, create some kind of alliance, possibly with marginalized straight people, you know, create some kind of gay straight alliance. I don't know. Just throwing that concept out there.
I'll just speak from my own personal experience. It's just like I wasn't sure how to be an ally. I wasn't sure what type. I got so caught up in like what kind of terminology I was supposed to be using.
Here's the logic. A black gay and a Hispanic gay may not belong to the same victim group racially, but they do belong to the same victim group on the basis of their sexuality. By focusing on the places where various victim identities intersect, intersectionality creates a united us versus them paradigm. Righteous victims rising up together to fight the oppressor, those dreaded straight white men.
Wait. No. Like, this isn't all about aligning everyone marginalized in society against every straight white guy. Like, it's not like, you know, all the gays in the gay bar align, and as soon as like a white straight guy shows up, like they all square up ready to fist fight. Like, that's not what happens. Like, what are you talking about, Ben? All it means is by recognizing the way others are oppressed, you can then be there for them and stand up for them in ways that you might not otherwise be if you remained ignorant of the ways in which they are oppressed by the wider world. That's it. That's it. You can't do anything if you don't know that there's a problem. But by having an intersectional understanding of the world, you can recognize the problem, and then you can act to help your friends, your family, your loved ones to resist and to like survive and to thrive. That's it. It's just a way of understanding the world that allows you to be there for one another when times get hard. But the way that Ben Shapiro like describes it, it's as if like it's a Magic the Gathering game with like a bunch of convoluted rules, and like suddenly your opponent plays a land card that you were not expecting. I don't know how Magic the Gathering works. This analogy is really falling apart due to my ignorance. I apologize. But moving on.
This explains why at a rally protesting the treatment of Palestinians by Israel, you might see a contingent of lesbian activists. That's intersectionality at work. They're so united by their victim status that it doesn't matter if Islamists throw gays off of buildings or murder female family members.
Holy shit. Ben, how is that any different than saying, like, I'm sorry, we need to play that back again.
By their victim status, that it doesn't matter if Islamists throw gays off of buildings or murder female family members.
Ben, not all Muslim people do that? Quite obviously. Like, yeah, they're protesting against an apartheid state. You know what? Even if you grant that everyone in every Palestinian is a bad person, they still don't deserve to live under apartheid. Sorry, I object to it on those grounds. But like, you just went out and made like one of the most bigoted statements you possibly could. Oh, they're going out there and protesting, even though a Muslim would sooner throw them off a roof than look at them. That's crazy. I've met Muslim people before as a gay trans woman, and they didn't try and throw me off the rooftop, weirdly enough. I don't know. I think he might be banking on the bigotry of his audience here. But what do I know? I'm just a white woman.
Who defy their father's wishes. Victim solidarity trumps all other considerations. That some professor tucked away in an ivory tower would come up with this nonsense is not surprising. What is surprising and disturbing is that so many people actually go along with it.
As I started to rise in television, I started to just get more blunt and just start saying, like, I would like a black writer. Because if I said diverse, you know, you get, well, white is diverse, which is something somebody said to me. And I was like, wow. I was like, it's not cool. But to really, you know, I reached out to my, you know, the women that I respect who are not white writers and directors, and I said, what should I say? What language should I use? You know?
Yeah. Why would a writer want people of different backgrounds with different sets of experience to write characters that have different backgrounds and a diverse set of experiences? Like, I don't know, like, Ben Shapiro here seems really upset at the idea that, like, maybe a black writer would be able to write a better, more nuanced, and more interesting black character than he could. But then again, most people could write more nuanced and interesting characters than Ben Shapiro, as we've seen from his book. Which, you know, as I say that, I'm realizing we haven't seen it from his book. Ben Shapiro novel. Let's see here. I believe it was the 2016 book True Allegiance. There's a preview here on Google Books. Let's see. A blockbuster debut thriller ripped straight from the headlines by Ben Shapiro. You know, let's take a look. We'll read the prologue together, okay? Shall we? Prologue. New York City. By the time Jennifer Collier hit the George Washington Bridge, it was already almost 9 a.m. rush hour. The bridge had turned into an enormous parking lot. Jennifer looked out at the sea of red lights before her, stretching all the way into New York, and sighed. Okay, okay. You've already established it's New York City. You don't need to establish that she's looking at a sea of cars stretching all the way into New York. You've already established that with this. Okay. Moving on. You should read this in his accent. Oh, you are so right. Jennifer looked at the sea of red lights before her, stretching all the way into New York, and sighed. There had to be 30,000 cars on this bridge, all of them moving 2 miles an hour. Jennifer glanced at her watch and sighed. Man, she sighs twice in the span of I'm sorry, you can't say that twice. You had one sentence between sigh and sighed. Stop. She was on the west side of the bridge, and she could see its 2 enormous steel-encased towers looming before her. In the passenger seat, her daughter, Julie, breathed softly, sleeping. Jennifer glanced at her watch again. 9:03. Come on, she muttered, which is when she heard it. The bridge groaned. It was a loud, low groan that made the car vibrate. Julie woke up. What was that? She asked drowsily. The groan died away. Nothing, said Jennifer. Probably just a plane overhead. Go back to sleep. Mommy. The bridge groaned again. This time it was longer, more drawn out. Jennifer felt the brake pedal vibrate beneath her foot. Mommy, that's not a plane, said Julie, wide awake now. The groaning continued, booming from beneath them. The bridge was undulating slightly up and down now. Jennifer could see the cables of the suspension bridge oscillating like the strings of a guitar. Mommy, what is going on? Julie cried. Cars ahead were honking now, urgently pleading for those at the front of the bridge to hurry up. A few cars were trying to ram their way through the traffic, pushing other cars towards the edge of the bridge. The honking and crashing, combined with the burgeoning low roar, made Jennifer's head ache, pound, the driving rhythm of her blood surging through her temples. Then the bridge's roar stopped again. The people ahead of Jennifer kept honking, panicking, trying to get off the bridge. After about 30 seconds, the honking seemed to die down a little bit. Julie's eyes grew wider. Oh, sorry. Julie's wide eyes grew wider. Ben, it's called a thesaurus. Fucking use one. She was staring at a crash on the other side of the divider, the flames leaping from the engine of a smashed Toyota. Jennifer could see a man's arm hanging lifeless out the window. Jennifer reached out and gripped Julie's arm. It's okay, baby, she whispered, wetting her lips. Then time seemed to stop. The noise of the traffic went silent. Jennifer's eyes opened in horror. The bridge before Jennifer tilted sideways. The 604-foot tower before her began to lean, almost gracefully, to her right. Jennifer screamed, but it was drowned by the ear-splitting, crackling noise. Hundreds of thousands of tons of steel, twisting and bending and grating on each other. The sound of a million airplanes all crashing at once. Jennifer looked to her left as she heard the steel cables shriek, stretch on the other side of the bridge. She locked eyes with an elderly man driving a silver Lincoln Continental. Behind him, she saw one of the enormous metal cables snap, clean, and slither wildly back and forth like a beginning fly fisherman's messy cast. Ah, yes, a very relatable analogy there. God. Look out, she shouted at the man. He couldn't hear her, but he turned to follow her eyes. The cable ripped through the Lincoln, slicing its occupant in half vertically, a jet stream of red following in its wake, splattering Jennifer's windshield. She opened her mouth to scream and realized that she was already screaming so hard, no sound was emerging. In front of her, the road itself began to tilt. Cars slid horizontally towards the railings, bath-time playthings of an angry god. The first tower buckled. Jennifer felt herself fall as the top level of the bridge dropped. For a moment, she was weightless. The peculiar memory of jumping inside an elevator when she was a little girl flitted through her brain. And then the second level of the bridge slammed down on top of the first level at a 25-degree angle. The tower stopped, bending but holding grotesquely, the metal shrieking and moaning, smoke emerging from below. Jennifer could hear the screams and cries of the wounded below her, the carnage of metal and bone. An awful crematory smell burned her nose as cars exploded beneath her, one by one, muffled by the tons of cement and steel, sounding for all the world like popcorn. Julie was screaming uncontrollably. In the distance, sirens sounded eerily, and over the river she could see emergency helicopters approaching. Jennifer fumbled for her purse and dug through it for her cell phone. She threw aside her wallet, her makeup, poured out the contents on the floor of the passenger seat, grabbed her cell phone, speed-dialed Bill. It rang once, then twice. Finally, it went to message. I love you, she whispered into the phone. As she did, Julie pointed through the front windshield, her lips quivering in silent horror. The second tower was tilting too. Like some sort of horrible snake, the bridge responded to the tower. It tilted and keeled over, the road peeling away before Jennifer as it leapt up and to the side. Jennifer saw thousands of cars turn on their sides, rotate like clothes in a washing machine. Jennifer heard the awful roar, the unnatural screaming of thousands of voices, as the stream of red lights before her began to disappear. There was nowhere for her to go. She turned to Julie, her eyes round with terror. She grabbed her hand. It's all going to be all right, she whispered. Julie nodded slowly. Jennifer clasped her by the face and looked into her eyes. I promise you, she said. It's going to be all right.
I can't imagine being Bensel Sharpener. Not only do you lose the genetic lottery in your own family to Mara Wilson, cousin, but even your female doppelganger.
Suck it, Tanuki. Thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs. It's going to be all right, she whispered. Julie nodded slowly. Jennifer clasped her by the face and looked into her eyes. I promise you, it's gonna be all right. Now just close your eyes, darling. Julie closed her eyes. Jennifer didn't. She looked into the river below her, saw the disappearing taillights of the thousands of cars descending into the depths of the Hudson. God, she whispered. Oh, God. Julie sighed again. So, I think we know why he doesn't have that Hollywood screenwriting position, and I think we know why he's so salty about it. Also, Ben's aware you can, like, get out of a car, right? There seemed to be an awful lot of time there during, like, she had time to, like, look through her purse, to sigh a lot, to just stare. I feel like when you start seeing the bridge collapse, that's the time to, like, get out of your car, grab your child, and then run. 'Cause, like, cars don't take up the entire street. She had time to hit her vape before she got out. Anyway, that's the prologue to Ben Shapiro's True Allegiance. Thrilling work there, Ben. I'm sorry. Okay. Out of morbid curiosity, I wanted to read, like, the next couple of sentences here.
I think you're jealous of Ben's writing skills. About Courtney and Carol or whoever.
So jealous. Just... Okay. Part 1. Before. Brett. Kabul, Afghanistan. Brigadier General Brett Hawthorne looked at his M9 magazine and cursed to himself. Empty. He was sat up against a mud brick hovel in the city's poor part of town. Even in Kabul, there was a large income gap, and felt the sweat trickle down cold between his shoulder blades. He hadn't been alone for years. Generals always had a personal security detail, but things had gone hellishly wrong. Hawthorne was a bear of a man, 3'6" in his bare feet, and 215 pounds in his underwear. With a graying blonde crew cut, and a face carved of granite, but he had plenty of smile lines. He just didn't like showing those to people unless he knew them. Ben, this is not very straight white male of you. This is not, you're not fulfilling the first part of this, Ben. Anyway, I'm really pleased that we found this.
It's also very funny that he criticizes Disney for going woke when the recent remake trend is Disney not watching or misinterpreting the animated films like him.
It's true. Disney just cut Disney Pixar just cut a scene, like a transgender scene from one of its ongoing shows. The storyboards for it leaked online. Or the animatics, sorry. Also, Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 gifted tier 1 subs. I appreciate you and your support of this channel. Okay. Also, sometime in the future, my pledge to you, chat, is that if we at some subathon in the future, we will read all of the preview material on Google Books for Ben Shapiro's book. I believe it is 56 pages. Would you believe me if I said Ben Shapiro didn't have a writing degree? Yes. Yes, I would. This is incredible stuff. Incredible stuff. Anyway, let's let Ben finish this.
You know, and I think it's worth it if you're in a position of hiring power or green lighting power to like reach out to people that are not like you and say, what can I do to be an ally, and how can I support writers of color and LGBTQ and disabled writers? Like, what can I do?
Intersectionality promotes the biggest hoax of all, that we aren't individuals who are to be judged on the basis of how we act, but are merely members of groups to be judged on the basis of our group identity.
Wait, but that's not a hoax. That's not how a hoax works. A hoax is like when you like a hoax is when you like create false imprints of like Bigfoot in the mountains of America. Okay, that's a hoax. And then you're like, "Hey everybody, the Bigfoot's here. You totally should buy some merch." That's a hoax. A hoax is not the observation that sometimes people are discriminated not because of their individual status, but rather because of the groups that they are placed in by society. That's like saying black people in America prior to the abolition of slavery weren't being oppressed on the basis of race. They were being oppressed on their individual merit. That's basically Ben Shapiro's argument here, by the way, which obviously is horseshit, like historically speaking. And like, it's still horseshit if you move that argument to the modern day. Is that your way of admitting to hoaxing Bigfoot? Yes. So like, I don't know. He's being a silly little guy here.
In other words, you and I, as individuals with our unique experiences, thoughts, and ambitions, count for nothing. Our racial and sexual identity count for everything. It's hard to imagine an idea less likely to produce a free and equal America.
You know, it's very interesting because intersectionality isn't just about race, sex, and gender, sexual orientation, etc. It's not just about those things. It also involves a lot of other things like class or religion. But oddly enough, Ben doesn't seem too keen on recognizing that intersectionality also incorporates oppressing the oppression of different religious minorities. That's interesting.
Than that. But what do I know? I'm just a straight white male. I'm Ben Shapiro for Prager University.
I don't know, Ben. You got a little steamy describing Brett, that bear of a man with a chiseled granite face. But okay, you're just secure in your sexuality. I understand. Anyway, Ben Shapiro very clearly doesn't know what intersectionality is, and it shows. Like, to a comical degree. Yeah, Ben's dream hunk. Anyway, I wanted to do that just as a bit of a palate cleanser, because dunking on Ben, it's just fun, and we haven't done it in a while, so hopefully you guys had fun too. Look at us go, chat. We did 2 whole segments. We may have encountered, multiple hours of technical delays, but you know what? We got 2 seggies done. Your dramatic readings are always a delight. Chat, be honest with me. No pun intended. My B-movie erotica smut that you guys made me write about the protagonist of B-movie seducing Tucker Carlson, I'm not just flattering myself when I say that was better written than Ben Shapiro's novel. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that the B movie erotica fanfic that you guys forced me to write was better written than that. Where's part 2? You guys have to pay me for part 2. Never heard of Euro what? Okay, full disclosure, there's a segment going up on YouTube around Christmas time that includes the full reading of my B-movie erotica that you guys paid me to write. You guys paid me a lot of money forcing me to watch the B-movie for the first time. Got really confused, and then I wrote the Barry, is his name Barry Benson or something? Where is it? I didn't post it online anywhere. I have to make an I have to make an AO3 account. It's more like we suggested it with money. Fair. Barry, his name is Barry Benson. I'm really disappointed in myself for remembering that. Anyway, it's about a whirlwind romance between Barry Benson and Tucker Carlson. Does it involve a beginner fly fisherman? No. I just found out that my local DSA office is a 3-minute walk from my apartment complex. No shit. Yeah, I have no excuse not to be involved now. Yeah, get out there. Is there testicle tanning? Boy, is there. You have no idea how close to the mark you are, Jaina. Okay, I think I'm going to hold off on the Megyn Kelly segment because I know it's going to make all of us, myself included, blisteringly angry, and it's almost 3 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going to hold off on that. Instead, let's talk about good things. Is it that bad? Let me put it this way. Megyn Kelly brought on a white supremacist to talk about Daniel Penny. So it's not going to be good. And you might think like, oh, you're being hyperbolic about the white supremacist thing, right? No, just straight up. Yeah. I'll try and make it fun when we do go over it. You know, we'll play the Megyn Kelly Santa's White clip because that's pretty funny. But yeah, it's bad. David Duke? No, it's like one of the more academic, more like weird, for whatever reason, like gets a pass despite the fact that their entire career is based on publishing like white supremacist screeds with just enough plausible deniability that they aren't like tarred and feathered and run out of town. Just popped in. Did I miss anything? Maybe. But we're not going to do that tonight. I don't have it in me. Instead, let's talk about good things. I usually never get to talk about like actual good things happening in the world, and I thought today I'm going to talk about something nice. All right? Something nice and neat, all right? All right. Here we go. Also, we've been going for 3 hours, technically 4 hours. If you're enjoying the show, hit the follow button over on Twitch, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, like the goddamn YouTube stream, and consider dropping those subs and donos. But my brain rot, there will be brain rot on a new day when I haven't been furiously angry for multiple hours prior to stream. All right, here we go. So, folks, one of the biggest problems on the planet, or at the very least in America, is the rising concerns around obesity and specifically some of the conditions that can arise, such as diabetes. My mom has diabetes. My dad has diabetes. It's not fun to watch a loved one deal with that. However, there have been, like, in the past week, multiple breakthroughs when it comes to, like, pretty revolutionary, cutting-edge science when it comes to diabetes that make me really hopeful for, you know, the near future, right? For example, this is a news story from just today, right? Published in Semaphore. Doctors report pig kidney transplant success in U.S. woman. So if you haven't heard about this, guys, basically, scientists have been figuring out how to genetically modify pigs in order to basically grow human-compatible kidneys that can then be, like, you know, transplanted into human beings who need organs. So she got a new kidney from a cop? No. We're talking about the science. It didn't fail this time. It does not appear to have failed this time. So, what's really interesting about this, doctors revealed Tuesday that a 53-year-old U.S. woman successfully received a kidney transplant from a genetically modified pig, becoming the only person in the world currently living with a pig organ, according to her medical team. Since the November surgery, the woman has lived for weeks without dialysis, an encouraging sign for future transplants using genetically modified pig organs. So one of the big things about this is that in the past, they have attempted this before. However, the recipients of these transplant organs, typically, like, their bodies rejected the pig organ, and the transplant failed and they died. The fact that this transplant has gone through, you know, the patient is beginning to heal up and no longer needs dialysis indicates the success, right? Which is very, very cool. It's very, very cool. And yeah, some scientists believe such procedures could save thousands of patients' lives. There are more than 100,000 people on organ transplant waiting lists in the U.S., according to official data. But their record has been mixed. Since 2022, there have been several transplants using pig organs across the world, but many of the patients died weeks or months after surgery. The doctors who worked with this pig kidney transplant patient told NPR that her youth and otherwise good health may make her a better candidate. However, the other aspect of this is that scientists have continued to genetically modify the pigs in order to make them more and more capable of interfacing, like make the organs more capable of interfacing with human physiology, right? Like, this would be a huge thing, you know? Like, I have loved ones waiting for organ transplants, and, like, BBBBB says, people always ask me about this, so getting ahead of it, lol. Totally totally kosher. For one, you aren't eating it, so kashrut rules don't apply. For two, saving a life supersedes a lot of rules, kashrut being one of them. Oh, I didn't know that. That's neat. but yeah, it's really, really cool. Now, this is not part of a clinical trial per se. This is more of like a proof of concept. So basically, if this success is shown to be like long-term successful as well, what that would open the door to is FDA trials. We would be able to have more scientific data on a larger segment of the population, and then that if those proved also successful, that would open the door to like mass, like this would become like one of the most life-saving surgical interventions and medical advances in modern history. This would be huge. This would save people like my mom and my dad. Like this, it's a really big deal, you know? And so that brings us to the other really big advancement, which is so cool. How do you feel about artificial wombs? I think they're really cool. I don't know a whole lot about them, but I do think that they're neat. I like the idea. This is exactly what I needed to hear tonight. Oh, Foxy Cheshire, it gets so much cooler. So there has been another scientific breakthrough in the treatment of diabetes that is so kind of groundbreaking that some people are calling it a cure. Some people are calling it like the first implementation of like nanobots or nano robotics in the human being, the human like physiology, like the first like way we can like actually put nanobots into human beings in a way that would function. I don't necessarily know that it's a cure for diabetes. However, it is a really big deal and it is pretty significant. So to maybe preface this a little bit more, there is a YouTuber named Dr. Ben Miles, who is in fact an actual doctor. And he had a tangential role in kind of helping to create this. And it's really, really neat. So we're not going to watch this whole video. It's about 20 minutes long, but we are going to watch this section about what exactly this is, right? So, get ready to hear some really cool science.
Special Agent Brixobenzomethamphetamine.
There is one significant problem with glucose. To a chemist, it looks a lot like fructose, or sucrose, or many other sugars. To an optical physicist like me, it looks kind of embarrassingly like water because of all the hydrogen bonds. It even kind of looks like paracetamol. That's a problem if we want to make a medicine that can respond to glucose levels in the blood supply. We don't want it accidentally triggering if someone has a headache. That's going to lead to a bad time and probably a lawsuit. It was with this challenge that our story starts at the chemistry department at the University of Bristol, the university I did my PhD at, in a group led by Professor Tony Davis, developing a class of chemistry called synthetic lectins. These are artificially designed proteins that mimic nature's ability to recognize and bind to specific carbohydrate structures like glucose. The challenge in designing these molecules is to build something that binds to glucose and only glucose, not fructose or paracetamol, and that it binds tightly and quickly, but at some point it releases. Otherwise, it's essentially removing glucose from the blood supply. This is an unbelievably difficult chemical challenge, but after many years of research, some very primitive candidates were produced with approximately the right properties, leading to this Nature paper. And now I think it's worth noting here, after big breakthroughs like this, advancements often kind of go quiet, much to the internet commenters' annoyance. It's a video in itself, but in an overly short summary. This is because academic funding supports the development of breakthroughs, not then advancing those breakthroughs to the point when they are useful. Equally, you might say, well, this is surely where industry should step in. Maybe, but it rarely happens because these are...
Yeah, like one of the huge issues around actually advancing science and medical breakthroughs, or medical science in general, is largely because you need public sector funding in order to move the needle forward until, dipshit business degree folks see the potential for profits that isn't, like 5 to 10 years away. There needs to be that short-term return. Otherwise, capitalism is just blind to an issue.
These ideas are still very early, need a lot of work, and may still fail. We are lucky in that in Tony's lab was Harry, a PhD student who in 2015 thought to launch a startup to fill the gap of moving this breakthrough forward so it didn't end up just as a really cool PDF. Things went really well for Harry until a year later when he hired me as technical employee number 4 or 5 straight out of my PhD as head of engineering, which is reasonably easy when there's only 2 people in the engineering team. He tried to give me the title of lead engineer, but I proudly said, sorry, I'm a physicist. So my title became lead physicist, and immediately that backfired when people read my title on email and thought I was a lead physicist, as in studies lead. So there you go, there's some level of karmic justice for all the engineers out there. We had a pretty hard journey as a startup. We realized there wasn't any wet lab space in Bristol for startups, so we ended up building our own building. Our engineering team was incredibly distractible and ended up building an electric skateboard controlled by a laptop. My theory here was that if we got it working, you could commute and do work at the same time. It ended reasonably badly. Luckily, the chemistry team was some of the best in the world and turned the chemistry from only possible if the stars aligned to something about 1,000,000 times better than anything produced by mankind or nature before. A system that bound and released glucose and only glucose. But there's an obvious question here that we've been skirting around, which is, that's not a medicine. How do you actually make it useful? To answer that question, we need to look at the current medicines that are being used. The hormone, insulin, that diabetics inject to regulate their sugar levels. If you look at insulin, you notice that it has a long, thick region in the middle, and then these 2 long, spindly arms that sort of float and flow, like a gentle version of those inflatable guys outside of gas stations. If these arms of insulin are...
By the way, I was unfamiliar with this guy's channel before I was shown this video. Thank you to whoever posted that in the Discord. But I really like the way he communicates about the science of this. It makes it very accessible in a way that I don't typically find, chemical discussions accessible.
Free, insulin is a great molecule and binds easily to insulin receptors in the body via a binding site somewhere on the thicker part of the molecule. The body then kicks into action, storing glucose into muscles and fat and slowing down the liver's production of additional glucose to reduce the blood sugar levels in the body. However, if you connect the 2 arms together, they link in such a way that they block access to insulin receptors' binding site, and insulin can no longer dock, essentially switching it off. The breakthrough idea was to attach the glucose binding molecule to one arm of insulin, and to bind something similar to glucose that wasn't glucose to the other one. For this, we picked a glucoside, basically glucose plus a couple of additional atoms. This would, in theory, then do something amazing. When there is sugar in the blood supply, the glucose binding molecule will catch and release the glucose happily over and over again, and insulin will be free to function as expected. However, if sugar levels fall and there isn't anything for the glucose binding molecule to catch, even though the glucoside isn't a perfect fit, the fact that it is so close means that it will start to have weak binding interactions. These will pin the arms of glucose together, covering insulin's binding site and turning it off. Should the glucose levels rise again, glucose would start to outcompete the glucoside binding and insulin would snap open, reactivating. It was at this point of this exciting idea around 2018 when the team started to realize doing all of this alone was going to be really hard. They were very fortunate at this point to team up with...
Guys, what he just described to you is basically a smart insulin. That's so cool. That's insane. What he just described to you is self-regulating insulin.
with Novo Nordisk, one of the largest suppliers of insulin in the world, and conversations got kind of interesting, and ultimately Novo decided to purchase the company and continue the collaboration. By this point, I kind of felt like I had made the contribution that I could to this endeavor and had slightly phased myself out of the process and took a very small windfall from the event, remember, just an employee, to start helping out other scientists.
Would this potentially cure diabetes? It would basically... I don't know that it's a cure for diabetes per se, but it would basically eliminate the symptoms and progressive damage of diabetes. So the underlying damage to like your kidneys would continue to exist, is my understanding. But this would regulate the symptoms and prevent it from getting worse in a pretty revolutionary way. So you'd still have to keep taking insulin. But like between this story and the pig kidney story, we are like on the verge of basically being able to cure diabetes between these two treatments.
To turn their theory into action and started building companies with academic teams around the world. The majority of the chemistry team, though, stayed collaborating with Novo, and a couple of months ago, after 6 years of further work, they got there. Publishing again in Nature, they produced a modified insulin molecule that is able to self-regulate. Now here they decided to give it the somewhat catchy name of NNC-2215, not to be confused with NCC-2215, which obviously is the Starship carrier USS Gentian. Pretty sure that was intentional. The very...
But like my mom lost part of her foot to diabetes. Like she's currently waiting for a kidney transplant. Like seeing stuff like this makes me want to cry, you know, like this is hope. This is an incredible advancement. Like this is so much, if I'm being honest with you guys, this is so far beyond what I thought our technology was capable of right now.
Complicated bit that you may have spotted I entirely glanced over was getting this insulin to work in a human at physiological conditions. It needed to deactivate below a precise 4 millimolar of glucose to keep the sugar levels where we actually want them in the human body. Tuning that system is what took 6 years. To study how NNC interacts with the insulin receptor, they compared the receptor affinity for NNC to its affinity for human insulin and a current clinically used form of long-acting basal insulin. You can see here each system gives broadly similar responses when tested in the presence of 20 millimolar glucose. However, when the glucose concentrations are decreased is when interesting things start to happen. At 10 millimolar, human insulin and the basal insulin perfectly recreate the same binding behavior as at 20 millimolar, but for the NNC insulin, there is a reduction in binding strength. This trend continues at 5, 3, and 0 millimolar glucose in solution. The binding is 12.5 times weaker when glucose levels are at 0 millimolar compared to at 20 millimolar. Exactly as theorized, the team had produced the world's first insulin capable of understanding the world around it. To see how this medicine behaved in the body, the research team also ran some animal studies. In diabetic animals, they supplied them with a constant intravenous dose of glucose to simulate a meal.
It's so cool!
They then added either normal insulin in one population or NNC in another population to simulate how a diabetic injects insulin to regulate their sugar levels. They tuned the quantities of both glucose and insulin so that the blood sugar levels were held constant. Then they stopped the glucose line, simulating the end of a meal. This caused immediately the glucose levels in both populations to plummet. For the basal insulin population, their blood glucose levels drop to a dangerous low, similar to if a diabetic patient injects too much insulin, and hit concentrations as low as 3 millimolar, hyperglycemia, where researchers immediately stepped in to restart the glucose supply to prevent damage to the animals. For the NNC insulin, glucose levels dropped rapidly, but suddenly started to plateau. At around 4.5 millimolar, the NNC insulin had automatically deactivated itself, preventing...
Dude! Have you showed your mom this? I haven't yet, because, like, because it's not, like, the tech isn't quite there. Maybe I should. I've been going back and forth on it all day. Because, like, it's not attainable yet, but it's, like, so close. Like, the fact that it auto levels out at a healthy level is incredible. It means that you do not have to, as someone with diabetes, constantly monitor your blood sugar levels, because if they're too high, you could die, and if they're too low, you could die. You know, like, this is crazy. This is wild.
Further glucose absorption and keeping glucose levels within a healthy tolerance despite NNC insulin continuing to be administered. To put this in context, this would mean that diabetics would never again have to worry about accidentally over or underdosing insulin. They could administer confidently that if they got their numbers even slightly wrong, the insulin would deactivate itself to keep them safe. This, like I said, is the most advanced medicine I have ever seen. And yes, I am still biased. And just to emphasize, I have no financial or otherwise connection to this work or output. I just think it is ultra cool science. This rightfully has been echoed by several people as the culmination of thousands of years of humanity's work to produce the best diabetic treatment possible. I am incredibly proud of all of the team.
Yeah, there's a reason why cure in the title of this video is in quotes, because it doesn't cure the diabetes, but it is basically one of the biggest single advances in treatment for diabetes in decades, maybe since like the 1920s, when they figured out how to isolate insulin from like pig pancreases. You know, like this is huge.
Members that have worked on this for so many years to bring this together. The question might be, what happens next? We are clearly entering medicine 4.0. We have many other types of medicine coming to market at the moment, specifically things like cancer treatments that can do clever things like react to pH levels or temperature levels so that they only damage cancer cells and not the rest of the body. We also have awesome things that I've covered on the channel before, like this domesticated nanorobot that can deliver medicine right to where it is needed within the body, like a more helpful version of the Sentinel from the Matrix. This NNC insulin needs further refinement and proving out before it is fully ready for use by human beings, but my hope is that this is firmly in its future. What does that future look like, though? To get us to...
I mean, the fact that a company... we don't need to watch the rest of this. I do... Like, this video is fascinating. Definitely check it out if you were interested by what you saw there, but, like... I mean, given the fact that one of the largest insulin manufacturers on the planet bought this startup company and this technology for $800 million, kind of indicates exactly what they think of it, I think. This is really cool. But how much will they charge for it when they finish it? I mean, my guess is they would want to charge, you know, pretty much the same. You know, maybe more at first, but they'd want to like completely swap production, I would imagine. Because it also doesn't like it's not like it removes the need for the product. It's just a better product, right? They are one of the largest manufacturers of insulin on the planet, Novo Nordisk, but they aren't the only ones. This would basically give them, you know, a global monopoly on the best kind of insulin. I imagine that they would be swapping over, and then they have like ironclad patents on it. But I imagine that because of the need for it, it's not something that they would, you know, charge, you know, tens of thousands of dollars for, but, you know, it's probably something we would need people in positions of power to cap prices on. Let's put it that way. Let's put it that way. Another reason we should infiltrate the Democratic Party and seize the levers of power in this country, very specifically so that we can cap the cost of these drugs as they come to market. really incredible stuff. Look, between genetically modified pigs and creating this type of like self-regulating insulin, the future looks pretty good when it comes to technology. The main issue is, how do we distribute that? How do we distribute the fruits of this intellectual labor? And that is something that is decided in politics. So let's get out there and fucking win. I know I keep hammering this bell, but we need to get out there and we need to involve ourselves in our local politics with DSA, with the Democratic Party. We need to take the levers of power for ourselves, because no one is going to come save us. We have to do it ourselves. And one of the things that we can get, if we do wind up actually following through and saving ourselves, is cool tech like this, not just for the wealthiest people in society, but for everybody. We have a future worth fighting for. Exactly, Dragonfly. I want a Star Trek future, not a Fallout future. Then let's get to fucking work. We can do it. Let's go. Oh, I was holding in that sneeze until the end of the segment. Oh boy. Oof. Oof. Yes, join your local DSA. Here's some links, folks. Join your local DSA. Let's go. Now, that was adorable. Thank you, Jazz Dog. You're the first person in over a decade I've seen do that. Nani? You see, he's like a squeaky dog toy. Oh, finger to nose. I read at some point that like pressure on the bridge under your nose can prevent sneezes. I've counted at least 3 riverboaters who've joined DSA since I started proselytizing and you promoting it. Hell yeah. Also, folks, join our Discord. We're constructing a basic mutual aid network where we can help each other either to, escape transphobia or discrimination in red states, or share our different community skills. We just launched a community marketplace. If you have things you want to try selling, we have we're putting together the Lavender book in Discord, or the Lavender pages, my bad. Basically information about safe blue areas for people to potentially move to or flee to if necessary. We have people volunteering to drive folks from red states into safe blue states, where, because frankly, we're coming up here to a time where Donald Trump is going to be taking office. And when that happens, the federal government is not going to be able to really do much. And it's going to come down to state level protections. And if you're in a red state, things can get really, really bad, really fast.
Escape from your transphobic state and come to my place. We can hang out and chill. We'll work a long-term plan first. We chill, then plan.
Exactly. Midnight All Night, thank you for subscribing. I really appreciate it. And we're also helping to put people in contact with their local Democratic Party. I know that there are several of you in chat who've talked about already going to meetings and being able to put progressive ideas and policies on Democratic platforms, which is amazing stuff. We need so much more of that. And I've been hearing from a lot of you joining DSA and getting involved in organizing in that way. We need more of that too. And we're going to be expanding our mutual aid plans and networks and stuff. But keep in mind, a lot of the transports services, a lot of the transport mutual aid plans that we have in place are specifically to get people out of dangerous red states and get them to safe states that have those state level protections that people will need to rely on. If you're just going from like Kansas to Mississippi, like, or Mississippi to Kansas, like it's kind of a pretty lateral move. We might not have people who can help you do that, because the entire purpose of this is to help people get to a safer location. I want to move up to Minnesota, but I'm stuck in Texas taking care of my mom and younger siblings. But one day, I know several trans folks who have made the pilgrimage to Minnesota, and it's great to see y'all here. And Gamergy, maybe I'll see you at the local DSA meeting. Transport? What the fuck? This ideology is getting everywhere? Mm-hmm. You're going to DSA? I am going to join DSA. I don't know how much time I'm a very busy bee, but I don't know how much I want to walk the walk as much as I can. And my partner has a bit more time and she wants to get involved too. So we're both going to join DSA here in Minnesota. It's not I can't just tell you guys and then not do anything myself. So I'm going to do what I can. Yeah, so if you live in a blue area and you know your relative location, please contribute to our rainbow book map. We're assembling like safe locations, even in red states, so that people know where they can stop for gas, stop to eat, stop to use the bathroom, etc. We're also compiling information about different local areas that people may want to move to, like Minneapolis, Twin Cities, or Denver, or Portland, Vancouver, or Seattle, or Tacoma. Yeah, the Rainbow Book Map. Yeah. It's under the Community Lavender pages. So please contribute your knowledge. You guys know stuff that other people don't. Even if it's just as simple as like which grocery store is the good one to shop at. So, yeah, a busy beat. Not all Bee references are related to the Bee movie. It's so sad that we have to do this. It is very sad that we have to do this. But I really do hope I do hope that what we do is useful. That being said, we're also assembling like community skills, so you can like if you're good at like sewing, you can share that with the community, either to help teach people how to sew or to help mend garments that people might need fixed, because times are probably going to get tough if these tariffs get implemented. Please, for the love of Pete, don't announce where to move. People know where to... What do you mean, don't announce where to move? Surprise! Minneapolis, the city that's had trans protections on the books since the 1970s. Oh man, no one knew that they were a safe haven for trans people. No! They're safe havens for trans people because they explicitly have protections in place. People who hate like gays and trans people already are aware. Already are aware of the blue states with protections. Trust me. Good night, Dragonfly. Get good sleep, okay? So, like, this isn't like, oh man, they're gonna be able to find us so easily. They already know where to look for us. The issue is we'll have legal protections in Minnesota that we aren't gonna have in Mississippi. That's full stop. That is what will matter under a Trump administration. And if we get, let me put it this way, if we get to the point where armed people from the state are rounding up like individuals to put in camps, then we're not talking about moving to a blue state to be safe. We're talking about fleeing the country to be safe. We're talking about a completely different thing. That wasn't my point. Then what was your point? How likely do we think that Dems will push anti-trans legislation too, since they seem pretty transphobic of late? I mean, I think that some of them will. Yeah. But all the more reason why we need to infiltrate the Democratic Party and take the levers of power for ourselves. They aren't and never were going to come save us. So we have to save ourselves, even if it's also from the Dems. Where could we run? Well, the main issue is with asylum, you have to be able to demonstrate ongoing, persistent state discrimination and violence towards your particular group. So until it gets actually bad enough where they are rounding up, trans people, you aren't going to be able to go to Canada and claim asylum. You aren't going to be able to go to a lot of places and claim asylum. Very, very well. I was asking you what your point was. But fine, be a bitch. Bye. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, asshole. For the love of Pete, don't tell people where to move. Yeah, well, oh man, how dare I come to a conclusion based on what you said? We're aware it's coming and people are trying to open LGBTQ asylum. Yeah, the issue is until that happens, like, options for actually getting out of the country are pretty limited. You have to have money in order to get out of America. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. We've been through this conversation so many times, chat. We've been through this conversation so many goddamn times. We've been through this conversation so many goddamn times. I'm aware that the Canadian political state right now is abysmal. I'm aware. I'm aware that it's bad up there. I'm aware. They're kind of going in on trans people in certain provinces. I fucking know! The issue is, when you're fleeing because you're getting rounded up by a fascist government in America, you can't be a beggar and a chooser. You go where you're gonna be taken. You go to the place where they're not actively trying to kill you. The fuck? Like, yeah, it's not the land of milk and honey. It's not a wonderful place free of problems. No place on the planet is. It's just a place that won't actively try and murder you the second you set foot in that country. When you go to, like, plead asylum in Canada, they're not going to be like, yes, we'll grant you asylum, and then we'll kill you. No, they're going to grant you asylum, and then they're going to have, like, systematic barriers that are going to suck for you to have to deal with. And you either deal with them and stay in Canada, or you go someplace else that's better after you get asylum. That's the entire point. The entire point of fleeing your country is not because it's ideal. My people ran for a while, it didn't help, announcing it may not do well for yours. The fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? No, seriously, Chunky Baldwin, explain, elaborate. In what way is announcing and coordinating evacuation efforts not going to help? The United States has too much territory. It's time for America to end. Good fucking luck, Glitchy. God. Y'all really waited until like 3 o'clock in the morning to come out here and piss me off. Like, I'm sorry. You all are familiar with the term "no man is an island," right? It's a lot harder to survive bad times if you don't work with other people. Not every trans person can just go fuck off into the woods and live in isolation. I am. Well, may your sandy beaches be blessed. It was not my intention to make you mad. I know it wasn't your intention, but you're being infuriatingly obtuse for no apparent reason. And you're not only that, but you're actively saying that efforts to make sure that people like me are safe are bad. And I want to know why. Like, what do you think is going to happen? Like, oh, they know a bunch of gay people fled to Minneapolis? They already know there are a bunch of gay people in Minneapolis. Oh no, did a bunch of gay leftists move to Portland? Wow, who could have seen that coming? Like, what do you, like, what's the issue here? And then when I questioned you, you were like, all right, I guess I'll fuck off. And it's like, I don't know, just have an actual conversation in a not infuriating way. There are trans people in Seattle? Yeah, crazy stuff, I know. Hey, Chaotic Kitten. It's gonna really suck when Bitcoin Millhouse gets elected. Bitcoin Millhouse. Like, has Minnesota been Democrats for like the last 60 years? Not 60 years. 20 years? That'll be a shock to people who are conservative. Who would have ever guessed that the Democratic vice president candidate who governed a state would have a bunch of leftist policies that protect people there? Well, wow. Hey, Riverboat Jack, we could always use more gay and trans leftists in Minnesota. More the merrier. I'm in your camp, Hunger Games. Yeah, but Chunky Baldwin, you have to understand, you haven't described what your issue is. You just said, it didn't work for my people, and then are being weirdly cryptic about it. And then, like, trying to say that telling people to move to places that have legal protections for them is bad. And I want to know why you think people moving to places that have legal protections for them is bad. Because that sounds, frankly, to simplify it, like a bad argument and a bad course of direction. So that's what I'm trying to wrench out of you. You said for the love of Pete, don't tell people where to move. And 1, never was telling people where to move. 2, was advocating for people to move to places with legal protections. I said don't point it out. Why? I'm trying to ask you why. And you're not explaining it. Why should I not advocate for people to move to places with legal protections for them? Why? I feel like it's a fair question on my part. Probably just an op/bait. Maybe it's being wildly successful. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a gayber. Won't you be mine? Lady Raincloud, I'm fine, you're right. Tell the world. Okay, Chunky Baldwin, just to answer my question, why should I not advocate for people to move to places with legal protections? The people who are bad already know which places have legal protections. So it's not a secret. The laws on the books aren't secrets. So, like, what is the damage? Why are you telling me not to advocate for it? Just tell me why. I didn't tell you not to advocate. That was the entire premise. You said don't point it out. You literally just clarified don't point it out. Why not? Just explain to me, why should I not point it out? I'll use your words to make it simpler for you to understand my question. Why should I not point it out? Shine the spotlight where you wanted to go. I'm a wit. That's what I do on a show. That's what I do. But why do you not want me to do that? Why do you not want me to point this out? Please tell me why. And if you can't in your next message, then this conversation is moot and has been a colossal waste of not just my time, but everyone else's time. So tell me why I shouldn't point this out. I just want to know your line of thinking in case I'm missing something here. Because I want to make sure I'm doing what's best for, people like me. I want to ensure that people are safe. So if you have some kind of insight where I'm somehow endangering people, I'd love for you to elaborate on that, because this isn't like a fucking game. These are people's lives, and I want to make sure people are safe. And when you're being real cryptic like this, it just makes me want to know your reasoning, and you're not elaborating on that whatsoever. So why should I not point it out? Why should I not point out where people should go? Chat, other chats, am I not making sense? Do you guys understand my line of reasoning and my questions? I feel like it's not difficult, right? No, you make sense? Making sense to me 100%? Okay, cool. I think it's a bad idea to tell everyone, hey, everyone go here, because who knows who is hearing all this. Who would be hearing it? In what context? Can you elaborate a bit more? Like, who do you think would be hearing this that would put people in danger? The context that hates you? Yeah, but they already know which places have the protections. And I'm not asking for addresses. I'm not asking for the places you're going to move to. I'm just saying, hey, here's a state that is the size of some countries and has populations the size of some countries. You should move there because it has state level protections for you specifically. I'm not saying, hey, move to this block in this city. This isn't enough information to dox anyone on, so I'm confused about what you think is going to happen. It's just bad tactics. In what way? Like, I'm sorry, if I tell gay and trans folks to go, you should move to Portland because they have explicit protections for you. Who's gonna hear that and be like, ah, yes, finally someone to single out in Portland, Oregon? Like, bad actors already know Portland, Oregon has protections for gay and trans people, right? So what information has meaningfully been transferred? I didn't get to say earlier because I'm in another chat, but fuck yeah, I'm totally down for your Blue Solidarity Network. For us down here in red states, I'm stable where I'm at, but fellow chatters in Georgia and other red states, I feel your pain. Hell yeah, Serotonin Crunch. If you want to get involved with that, join the Discord, riverboat.gg/discord, and you'll get an invite. And you can volunteer to be part of like the transport team, or put in your mutual aid skills or your mutual aid requests, or community skills, etc. Yeah, like, I don't know, if I was going out into the wilderness to build like some kind of secretive compound isolated from society, maybe I wouldn't advertise that and its location, but we're not doing that. We're just saying, hey, Minneapolis has had trans protection since the 1970s. Maybe it'd be a good idea to live in or around there. That's not really doxing or even really an information breach. And yeah, there are obviously like liberal cities and counties in Florida, even though it's a red state. Absolutely true. The issue is what happens when the state is empowered to discriminate. And when the federal government is enabling and empowering discrimination, being in one of those liberal counties or cities in Florida isn't going to do much when the Florida state government and the federal government team up against you. So the issue is we need to get people to safe places that have those state level protections. I don't have a means of transportation, but I'm down just for helping with conversation and stuff. Hell yeah, you can also help fill out the Rainbow Book, which shows different safe places that folks who may be traveling on their way through to safer locales can stop to like use a bathroom or get food or something. Yeah, helping people flee persecution is good, actually. Exactly, Bill Casey. Exactly. Come to Australia. You know, honestly, if asylum opens up, it would be Australia would be great. You know, Kai McDougal, like unironically, we've got a lot of chatters from Australia. Our community does have ties to Australia, to the land down under. So, like, if asylum does open up in Australia, y'all can go there knowing someone in Australia. Australia sucks for asylum, though. Yeah, I mean, most places do these days. It's not easy or fun. Though I hear like Finland, Iceland, both pretty good when it comes to like asylum, so they may be the first to open up. We'll see. Is it worth moving if moving might put me at financial risk, especially when we might be facing a recession soon? I mean, it really depends on where you live and how hard you might be hit by the recession, what your individual situation is, Iceland, I've heard, is trans friendly, but that's my escape spot. No one else can have it. Heard the Swiss are pretty good too. True. I'd love to go chill in Iceland for a few years. That'd be really fun. Like hit up the hot springs. See the tundra. Stream all day every day. The dream. Salmon Moose, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs.
This is your ASIO handler. Thank you for alerting us to the movement of minorities along designated paths.
You're welcome, handler. Bag 'em, tag 'em. And as we all know, ASIO stands for A Song of Ice and Oranges. There we go, nailed it. Icelandic is one of my favorite languages to listen to. It is a very fun language to hear. It's Australian Security Intelligence Organization. Oh, that's a little less fun. I liked A Song of Ice and Oranges. Oh, guys. We've been going for 4 hours, technically 5 hours, if you include the technical snafus. I'm gonna go to bed. It's 3:30 in the morning. And I'll see you all tomorrow, I think. Let's raid you guys in. Is there someone on at the moment? Let's raid into Carbon Says. How about that, huh? Apparently they're debating conservatives over there. You guys will enjoy some good debate
Are
content.
oranges called orange because orange is orange? Or is orange called orange because oranges are orange?
It's too late for the question. I think that just caused my brain to have like the AI recursive loop until it started breathing smoke. Thank you for the $5 donut, Lady Rainclad. Get good sleep, everybody. I know I got a little salty there at the end, but I'm sleepy and I'm gonna go pass out. But first, I'm gonna take my meds. Med check, everybody. Make sure you take your meds too before you go to bed. All right. See ya, you salty scallywags. It was a rough stream. It was kind of a rough stream. Bye, everybody.